Hi, in this video I want to show you how you can use a user input instead of hard coding values. So examples I've shown you how you can initialize values inside a method so that you can pass the data and do some comparisons. This is highly limiting, right? We did that as a step before, we made it better. So saying Charlie is always 120 or John is always 120, that is not the truth. Then this function becomes really limiting as to what it can do. It can only work with these values. So instead of doing this, I want to show you another way to gather input, and that is called as a prompt. So you can give a message here saying enter Charlie's height. So this is going to capture data and give it to you, the data that we type in. So when you do this, there is going to be a prompt box that will come in and let you enter a value at runtime. So you don't have to default that value at design time. Okay. So John. Okay. So now what happens is we ask for the height of Charlie, save it to Charlie. We ask for the height of John, save it to John. And then depending upon like what values are there, you can decide who's taller. Okay. So this is a way of getting input from the user. So let us see how to test it. Let me save this. You always have to refresh the screen. So we will change this also later, but let's test it. So when I say this, when I click on that button about Charlie and John, it's saying enter Charlie's height. Now I can make it something else than what the data is. So now it says John's taller. Now let's do it again. So I want to make Charlie taller than John. See? So Charlie is taller. If I make both of them equal, so it says both of them are same height. So without putting the data inside your code, you are giving it at runtime. And that is the most effective way of writing code. So I'm going to be making some changes to, okay. What else did we have? The tropical fruit. So we were passing the value from here. Instead of that, we can take this value out. And instead, we can say prompt. Okay. Actually, I'm going to leave this alone. The reason being we are passing it as a parameter. So let's leave it alone for this particular one. What you can do is you can do a prompt here. Here you can say var. You can write the code here. And then you can write the code here. I'm just going to leave it alone for this time being because it gets really like messy. You're not supposed to be writing a lot of code here in script anyways, inline script anyways. So let us see what else do we have. Okay, this guy, count multiples, count multiples, count multiples, right? Find the multiples of 2, 3, and 5 between 1 and 100. So we can make this generic and I can show you how. Count multiples. So let's put like a generic function here called count multiples function without any parameter. Here we can make this call. So instead of passing 2, we can pass x. y. Here we can pass y. And then here we can pass z. So we did the same thing. Instead of hard coding the values inside the code, we are just asking for it and then we are making it work. So the multiples, that's the example I'm showing you right now. So let's try that out. Where do we have the multiples? Here. So when I click on this now, so let's go and take a look at the HTML. Make sure our changes are in place. We have nothing here, so let's change that. HTML count multiples function. Count multiples fn. So that's the function we are calling. Instead of calling the three separate ones, we are just calling the one function, and then we are branching off and calling this function from this function. The reason is we don't want to say count multiples of 2, 3, and 5. Instead, we want the numbers to come, in which case we can do it for any number of for any number for that matter. So it is not like limiting. Okay, fine. So let's refresh the code again. So the HTML is calling this function. Let's click on this. Enter the first number. Let's say 2, 3, 5. And then if you go to console, that's where we are writing. So multiples of 2, multiples of 3, multiples of 5. So let's rerun this code again. Now instead of that, we can say 5, 8, 10. So multiples of 5, 8, 10. So we are writing function in such a generic way, it doesn't matter. Multiples of 3 numbers. We are making it generic. Okay, so you will be able to, like, even the display triangle 10, even this we can change. So we can just say it is a triangle with n rows. So anytime I have a parameter going in, I just declare another function, display triangle with n rows. And that takes no parameter. And then I call this guy. So this is called as a wrapper. So all I do here is I send the number by asking a prompt. Prompt, enter the number of rows for your triangle. And then I'm going to save it to num. And then I call this method num. So now instead of the hard coding the value right here, saying giving a 10 here, what we are doing is we are making it more generic. So let's see what the HTML says. Print a triangle made up of star as many rows as I say. So now I am deciding how many rows it should have. Same thing for this count triangle, count stars in triangle. So that's a separate button. See, it's calling display triangle, and then it's just writing that. So it doesn't need the number because we already gave the number. So all it needs is that. Okay, so we are just refactoring some of the code, but the main idea is we are introducing a prompt here, and that's going to capture the number of rows. So let's see that. So we'll go here, display triangle. I'm going to need like 4 rows. So there's my triangle with 4 rows. I click on count stars. Oh, num, I have to send the num. Okay, yeah, probably need it. Just the same thing. Put that guy here. Okay. So display triangle, 7 rows. Count stars, 3 rows. There, 3, 4, 5, 6. Count star, 13 rows. And that's how big it's going to be. And it has 91 triangles, the stars in it. So when you do your homework, just make sure that you are using the prompt instead of hard coding any values. Hope you find this video useful. Thanks.